The NTSB is updating the situation in New Jersey City after the helicopter crash that happened last week. Obviously, they gave an update on Friday, but doing so again on Monday. This is happening in progress. We're bringing you this live right now.
To the investigative update. Again, on behalf of all of the NTSB, our sincere condolences to those who lost loved ones in this crash. It's truly a tragedy, and we hate that for the families. It's never an easy thing. So our thoughts are with them, very much so. Our family assistance group has been working to assist and inform the families and survivors. They'll continue to support throughout the entire investigation. Max Green, who's leading that, is with us today. In fact, Max and I have just finished about an hour and a half ago a briefing for the family members of the similar information that I'll be briefing you. We want to go into a little bit more, since this is our second day of explanation of the NTSB's process and parties. We've been using this practice for about 30 years. We offer the party status to those government agencies, individuals, operators, government officials that may have experienced or been a part of this accident. We conducted an organizational meeting, as we said yesterday, and established the parties. They are primarily the same in that it's Honeywell, the engine manufacturer, the Federal Aviation Administration, NACTA, which represents the air traffic controllers, and we also have one clarification. Due to the Mitsubishi aircraft being manufactured in Japan under the International Civil Aviation Operators, Annex 13, we offer accredited status to the Japanese Safety Board to be a party to this investigation, and through that accredited status, the manufacturer, Mitsubishi, will be considered a technical representative to the overall party structure. It's a small nuance, but we wanted to clear that up from yesterday to make sure we had the right language. We began to put together a multidisciplinary set of groups to investigate every accident of this investigation. The team is being led by Albert Nixon, who is here with me now as the investigator in charge. Albert is a 12-year veteran of the NTSB and over 30 years in aviation in general. He's out of our Phoenix office. He's also a certified airline transport pilot, one of the higher ratings. So he's been pulling together a really good team to help us work through this. To give you a little bit of update about what we've been doing and how we've been doing that. As of this afternoon, we've had our drone and UAS team in. They've done a full aerial view and mapping of the entire wreckage location and the surrounding area. They completed those activities about 2 hours ago. And they have a lot of good imagery that we believe will be very helpful for the post-impact inspection and evaluation. We've also conducted additional video and photo documentation of the scene and surrounding areas. And I want to call out again Columbia Sheriff's Office. They provided us with over 1,000 images post-impact of what occurred and how the plane was found. That will be very helpful for us, as some of the items in the wreckage had to be moved for the extraction of the passengers. So those are very helpful details, and they've been very accommodating from not only having a command post but security on the scene. So the community's been very welcoming and helping us in this overall investigation. We brought in a team of air traffic control specialists who have assembled. They've begun interviews. They're doing those interviews in the Albany Air Traffic Control Tower, which was controlling the aircraft at the time. We are beginning the interviews. Those will go on for the next week. We'll be interviewing every one of the controllers that were involved in the entire flight and making sure that we're getting all the details along with the management. The FAA has brought an air traffic control manager from Harrodsburg, Pennsylvania in to help facilitate. The reason is it's a similar sized tower that does similar operations, so we want someone who can assist us as a technical expert that was not in the tower itself. It's a normal and customary part of our practice. We pulled a number of pieces of equipment from the actual aircraft itself, and these are going to be the avionics that have been upgraded. So we've secured a large number of those. Some of them are damaged. None are in its pristine state due to the force of the impact, but we do believe that they may be helpful in whenever we get them to the laboratory to being able to determine whether they were working and the accuracy and the level to that. From that, we've also secured multiple memory cards, and those are being sent right away now to our laboratories in D.C., where we have a team of experts that do recorder device and downloads, and once they get there, we'll have a better idea of what additional granular data they will provide. But we were very happy to have pulled those additional memory cards. We have begun the prepping for the engines, and they are being transferred. They will ultimately be torn down in Phoenix, Arizona. And so we anticipate a full tear down of both of the engines, and Honeywell obviously is working with us very closely on that. Aircraft recovery experts have arrived on scene. They arrived a few hours ago. They're currently working on the extraction of the aircraft itself. We anticipate this will be concluded by tomorrow evening, at which point the wreckage will all be moved to a secure facility in Massachusetts, where part of our team will relocate in order to do a more thorough examination of the aircraft itself and the structure. We've also received from the FAA ADSB data. This is Automated Detection Surveillance Broadcast. It's commonly referred to as ADSB. We have received that data from the FAA, and it gives us a much greater fidelity of information regarding altitude, speed, location, trajectory. It will be overlaid with a number of the other parts of our investigation, including the air traffic control radar information. As part of the FAA review, we will also be doing video replays of the actual ATC, or air traffic control scopes, that were being seen at the time. And we'll also be looking at the low altitude alert that was presented to the air traffic controller screen that we mentioned yesterday. Here's a few things that we know about the actual flight itself. For this aircraft, it was the second flight of that day. It had taken off at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time from Norwood Memorial and arrived at White Plains at 10:19 a.m. It then departed White Plains at 11:34 en route to Columbia Airport before it was lost on air traffic controller screens and subsequently found in a post-impact crash. We're at the location that we found it. Automated weather at Columbia Airport was recorded 4 minutes prior to the actual accident. And I'm going to make sure I clarify this. It was at the airport. The crash scene is approximately 10 miles from the airport. So there can be a slight variance between the airport and what was experienced at the crash scene, but it would be fairly consistent. And we're actually going back out and looking at other reporting stations en route to make sure we're providing the best investigative picture of all the information. Automated weather at the Columbia Airport 4 minutes before the crash indicated a minimum ceiling of 400 feet AGL. Wind from 10 degrees at 8 knots, a temperature of 37 degrees with a dew point of 36 degrees Fahrenheit. Relative humidity was 93%. Now, what we can say is weather was, at that time, what we consider to be deteriorating. And I mentioned the ceiling at the airport being 400 AGL. That's above ground level. At 400 feet AGL for that approach at that airport, it would be the minimum for a landing under an IFR, or instrument flight approach. So at 400 feet, the altitude would be the absolute minimum, 400 feet ceiling would be the minimum for that type of landing on that approach at that time. We have reviewed some of the records regarding the pilot of this aircraft, and if you look at the Mitsubishi series, you may notice that this type of plane requires additional training beyond just a normal FAA private pilot's license. We're reviewing all details regarding that pilot and the licensing, all the inspections, all the check rides. But for this specific aircraft, additional training was required to operate it. The training was completed and the pilot was proficient. It was completed on October 8th of 2024. Our teams have been working around the clock to try to gather this information and put together the facts that will help us determine what caused this accident, and of course help prevent such tragedies from happening again. Now I'm going to ask if the IAC to come forward and tell you a little bit about some of the working groups that he started to establish that will ultimately lead to the investigative report.
As mentioned, for the investigative update, we formed several teams. The first is a weather team, and obviously, as you mentioned with the weather, they're gathering all the pertinent weather data from the National Weather Service for the accident. Previously mentioned, we also have an ATC team here, plan to be here all week. I'm not going to, I think you talked a little bit about it already, but their role is the reconstruction and review of the air traffic control services provided to the accident aircraft, obviously. And this includes flight track, surveillance, radar, ADSB, etc. And any, of course, any communications with ATC. Another group we have formed is structures, and basically those are the ones that are currently on scene finishing up. They're looking at the airframe, the engines, and also they'll be looking at impact angles, and they're trying to determine the angle the airplane impacted and also the attitude. So that's being worked as we speak. And finally, power plants, the engines. They're going ultimately, but obviously they'll be looking at the engines and the propellers and all the accessories associated with the engine.
Thank you, Albert. So these, as I said, they've been working around the clock. As to our schedule going forward on the investigation, we're working closely with not only the parties to gather that principal evidence and key measurements to expedite on our on-scene activities. Our goal while we are here is to collect all perishable evidence that can be stored for later examination and evaluation. Once that is concluded, the team will wrap up in the area. We anticipate being in the area, we believe, another 5 days, depending upon weather and what we find. However, if we need to stay longer, we will. If we need to bring people back at another point, we will. But we feel comfortable with where we're at currently in obtaining that perishable evidence. We made good progress today and yesterday, and it's still very early. Our objective is not just to find out what happened, but why it happened, so we can make recommendations so this does not happen again. We're not going to be speculating about what may have caused the accident. We hope to have the preliminary report out in 30 days and the final report in 12 to 24 months. However, I do want to stress, if we find a pressing need, we have no problem issuing an urgent safety recommendation before then. The NTSB has had a history. In fact, we did a similar urgent safety recommendation. I was the board member for the DCA crash. Once we found information that we thought needed to be corrected immediately, we will make that urgent safety recommendation to either a manufacturer or to an organization or a regulatory authority. So we hope to have the investigative report in 12 to 24 days. We will be sending out, as I said, the preliminary report. It will have the facts of the accident itself, more information that we pulled together regarding additional reports. This will also be probably our last media briefing on site, because at this point we know where we're kind of going with the investigation and feel comfortable with where we're at. I'm going to stress again, we ask anyone that has any information regarding this, and I mentioned yesterday door cams or ring doorbells, things like that. We don't believe, because of the post-accident or the accident video, we don't believe that there would be any reason, but even if someone finds a little piece of something in their yard that may not look right, please contact us. And the email address is witness@ntsb.gov. That email address is witness@ntsb.gov. if you think that you have any evidence or any information that could assist in this investigation. Those tips and clues are usually very helpful for us. Since this will be our last briefing, I also wanted to call out the first responders who were there, and they did a really amazing job considering not only the notification but the conditions. There's a lot of jet fuel that is in that area. I know a lot of us had to decontaminate 3 times yesterday in a wash bay, and so they were really working very hard, and we're very appreciative of their efforts. Those are really truly unsung heroes of your community. Those first responders who were involved in the initial response were the Columbia County Sheriff's Office, the New York State Police, the Community Rescue Squad, the Craryville Fire Department, the Hillsdale Fire Department, the Columbia County Fire Coordinator's Office, Columbia County Coroner's Office, the New York State DEC Spill Response, Greenport Rescue, and I would also like to mention the school systems in Columbia where they've allowed us to use as one of their facilities in their wash bays as we've been doing some of our meetings, and also LifeNet. The Sheriff's Office and others were hopeful enough that they actually had an air transport on call if necessary for this incident. It ultimately was not needed, but we were appreciative of everything they did. So with that, we're going to try to take some questions and hopefully get some answers for any information you may need. I ask that you just tell us who you are and from what outlet you come from. Yes, sir.
We asked last time about the airworthiness certificate that was first in 1985 and then it was updated in 1995. More information is usually only done if there's something significant that happens, a crash or anything like that. Can you give us any insight into that airworthiness certificate today?
So the question was about airworthiness ticket, and we did take that back, and we've had a discussion with the Mitsubishi representative. Off our initial review, we feel comfortable that that plane should be flying. We see no issue with that, especially with its inspections. We do know that occasionally when an airworthiness ticket is opened up at an original delivery, it sometimes creates one airworthiness certificate, and sometimes you can have either a major upgrade or a change in the aircraft. It can be several other reasons. So one of the other things that we're actually doing is going back through every maintenance record for the entire life of that aircraft. We're pulling together every inspection. We will most likely talk to anyone who did work on that plane recently. We will also talk to anyone who may have done any check rides or anything in regard to follow-up maintenance on it. But we are feeling good about the specificity of the information we're receiving. Because of the sale that occurred last year, there was a lot of updated information, and there were several reviews from different regulatory authorities. So I appreciate it. Other questions?